What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and man, what a press conference from Aaron Glenn. I still feel like I'm kind of energetic and buzzed and goosebumps a little bit every time I see more of the quotes coming out or I revisit his introduction. Just a phenomenal job all the way around, executing on all fronts and really tackling a lot of the biggest questions up hand, right? Masterclass in dealing with the New York media. With that said, though, part of making sure Aaron Glenn can get this New York Jets team to truly be built for this you-know-what is the fact that him coming over to this team, there's a lack of a lot of stuff. Culture, identity, and in Aaron Glenn's own words, you can imagine accountability, right? Or more so, the fact that guys haven't been held responsible or been aware of the responsibilities to be held accountable. So with him coming over, and this is the case with many great leaders, and I would say in all cases, right, it's very rare, if non-existent, that everything needed on a team was already in place, and it was the head coach just royally screwing up. So when it comes to having guys overly tough, right, but the kneecap biters, when it comes to being exceptional as an athlete, and of course the responsibility / accountability piece, I think Aaron Glenn's going to look to the Lions to help supplement that culture and really have some guys in place that can let some of these younger guys that have been groomed up by Robert Saleh and company see what it looks like firsthand for what he wants from an effort standpoint, etc., right? So there's 5 names to be aware of, and also keeping in mind that we may end up with a couple of these names. We may end up with none. We'll have to see how our cap situation plays out and what the Muji / Glenn off-season plan truly ends up being. And then also, we've already seen Aaron Glenn have a exceptional mind and awareness to go outside of his comfort zone or his inner circle to make sure that he's touching base with the best people to really help and support his culture and vision. So we'll see. I think it would behoove him to grab some guys that he's been with for the last couple years, and he feels like executes his dream at a high level. So we'll see. But 5 names to be aware of. We have cornerback Carlton Davis, linebacker Derrick Barnes, defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike, probably butchered that, defensive end Marcus Davenport, and then defensive end John Cominsky. So starting with Carlton Davis, he would be the shining jewel of, these free agent targets, right? He's coming off a 1-year, $14.5 million deal, and many people think that he could get a pretty large payday. The only thing that would really be holding him back is the fact that he's never played a full season. He's had various health risks. He's been out at least 2 to 3 games in every season, and I don't think he's played. I want to say I saw something like he didn't play more than 13 since like 2020 or something crazy along those lines. But ultimately, he's your typical boom or bust style player, right? If he's on the field, you know what you're going to get. And he put up another tremendous season this year where he lasted up until week 15. And through those 15 weeks, he had 11 forced incompletions, which ranked him 9th in the NFL. So he was your prototypical shutdown style corner where he may not get his hands on the ball a ton, which I think he at least grabbed himself 2 interceptions this year as well. But he's going to make sure that those throwing lanes are obsolete, or they're going to need a perfect pass to get past him. So you love that fact. Only allowed 7 open targets in press situations, and any man coverage cornerback can tell you, watching what guys like Darrelle Revis and Richard Sherman, some of these guys have done, but specifically honing in on Darrelle Revis because we know he was one of the exceptions to the rule of not putting your guy in strictly man coverage situations against top wide receivers in the NFL. Number 1 targets on a week in, week out basis. Carlton Davis is a little bit cut from that same cloth, right? Completion rate allowed of 55.3%. So you love everything he's going to bring. The question is going to be, what does his actual dollar amount look like? And how will the New York Jets structure the contract if we can get him based on availability, right? And you might end up seeing something like what we saw with Tyron Smith, for example, where we're going to give him incentives on some kind of, maybe bi-weekly cadence or something like that, depending on how many games are played, or maybe at certain, what am I trying to say here? Like accrual points, right? Weeks 5, week 8, week 13, something along those lines. The next player, we have Derrick Barnes. So he is a converted defensive end that started playing linebacker in the NFL. Former 4th-round pick for the Lions in 2021, which means he spent about 4 years in Aaron Glenn's scheme. So this is one of those guys that you really feel like being a perfect picture free agent for him as somebody that's been productive. They've been generally healthy, and it's a guy that you feel like has worked his way into what Aaron Glenn wants to accomplish with his linebackers as an off-ball LB that's, again, been pretty solid, good all-around player. Now, you'd love to see him burst out and maybe be in some of those top conversations, but overall, he does everything effective from coverage to pass rush to run stop, and maybe even gives you a little bit in the way of takeaways and stuff. So I would love to see him join this team. Plus, one of the underrated pieces is we really expect to go back to a 3-4 defense of some sort. There's still going to be elements of 4-3 fronts and different things like that. But the linebacker expectations are going to change, right? Jamie Sherwood may end up struggling. Quincy may end up struggling with the expectations of assignments with this new role and the lighter bills that they're going to carry, right? So Derrick Barnes can really help make way for any kind of transformation in that linebacker unit. Really, the question mark with him is he did have a significant knee injury in 2024, so he was hoping to come back in the playoffs, maybe make the Super Bowl for the team, something like that. But early exit, things didn't work out, but he'll have a healthy offseason to come back and should be a significant part of training camp and the likes for Aaron Glenn. So that moves us to defensive tackle. We've been looking to pair somebody with Quinnen for a long time. It feels like we just keep having one-year rentals. Maybe we can figure it out in the draft with Mason Graham, but it never hurts to really supplement and make sure you have as many starters as possible, as deep as you can. Levi is a great option for us. He is a former second-round pick in that 2021 draft as well, so you love the fact that he spent years understanding what Aaron Glenn wants on that defensive front. Obviously, is going to have versatility to kind of move up and down the line of scrimmage. Health concerns, which feels like it's a trend for the Lions players, but if you've been paying attention the last couple of years, that has been the case, right? That aside, though, he's put up some strong numbers, and much like Carlton Davis, he's kind of a guy that hasn't really fulfilled all of the promise as a former second-round pick, which doesn't relate to Carlton Davis necessarily, but more so the boom or bust type ability. When he's on the field, he can produce, and I wouldn't even say in spurts. I would say he makes maybe 1 or 2 exceptional plays, every game. But overall, he's just a solid guy. But 69.4 PFF grade for the 2024 season. Also ranked 22nd best interior player. So for a guy that may end up being kind of a key backup player, maybe potential starter, that's a solid pairing with Quinnen. 12.5% pass rush win rate, and that made him a top 15 D tackle in the league. So this is a guy that I feel like you're not going to lack in anywhere specific, right? There's going to be some size that he brings. And so you don't really have this issue kind of like we've seen before where you go from a Quinnen Williams to potentially a Solomon Thomas, right? This is a guy that gives you starter level ability and snaps that can come in. Marcus Davenport. It's a name that I'm not as high on, but I feel like he could be kind of a flyer and just see if he sticks making it past training camp. Only played 6 games over the last 2 seasons, and we would make his 4th team in the last 4 years. So overall, if you look at his resume, he has something like 21 sacks over the last 4 years. I want to say 55 quarterback hits. So there's ability there. And he has familiarity with him from the Saints days as well, right? But this is a guy that I just can't help feeling like wouldn't really make the cut overall, whether it's due to health, whether it's due to lack of performance. Obviously, we have a pretty solid or well-respected class of edge rushers here. So this is a guy that just may end up being on the outside looking in his entire time with the Jets. But still, somebody would think that maybe he can be unlocked, right, with the right play callers, etc., in place and talent around him. And then lastly, John Cominsky. This is a guy that just really feels like, not to say that he's just a guy, but he's someone that always tends to be underrated within the defense because he does the dirty work. Maybe pretty similar to like your John Solomon type. Doesn't necessarily have an area of expertise. Doesn't necessarily put up crazy stats or fills up the stat sheets consistently, but he can set an edge. He can work in the interior. He does offer a little bit of pass rush pop. And so he's not underwhelming, but he's not going to blow you away either, right? Last 2 years, 66 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 20 quarterback hits. Pretty solid work overall, right? Cause for concern with him as well is he did miss the entire 2024 season, suffering a torn MCL in his right knee. So the theme here is you're going to have a lot of guys that are working on health, making sure they can get right, but if everything breaks the right way for them, these are guys that could have foundational seasons right out of the gate, right? Really fit in well with the talent that we already have in place. And in many cases, these guys are really just going to be supplemental, right? Carlton Davis, potentially replacing DJ Reed, but also really like the idea of Quantez Stiggers being able to take another step with Aaron Glenn at the helm. He feels like he's kind of cut from the same cloth as Aaron Glenn, as a guy that really had to rely on smarts and takeaways, as well as just overall building up the rest of his weaknesses, right? Derrick Barnes, he's going to be the trendsetter in a new look version of the linebacker core for us. Levi is a potential starter, solid backup, but I would say improvements over the likes of having a guy like Solomon, and even Javon Kinlaw in this case, right? And then you have more of your potential depth guys with some upside like Davenport and Kaminsky here. So I would not say I'd be thrilled with getting any one of these guys, but I think overall you could make the case that all of these would be at least an ideal pickup or a dart throw at being able to make this team better in some way. So let me know what you guys think. Who would be your preferred targets? Who makes the most sense to you? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.